5 books, art films, numerous art installations, experimental theater presentations, is the founder of an arts and ecology center in Central America, owner of Teatro Jaguar Luna, Jaguar Moon Press, Jaguar, and leads an Earth Arc reforestation project in southern Costa Rica.
Very nice. Okay.
Activist, poet, and author Perry Brass has published 19 books, not that it's a competition, was a member of the Gay Liberation Front and co-editor of Come Out, world's first gay liberation newspaper, and co-founded the Gay Men's Health Project Clinic, first clinic for gay men on the East Coast, now operating as Callan Lord Community Health Services. I didn't know that. And the Rainbow Book Fair, the largest LGBT book event in the U.S., which the Bureau will be co-sponsoring in October.
Yes.
Yay! Give it up.
Here for the home team. Yes.
And you have your
Hi.
clicker.
I don't, but
Oh, here it is.
Okay.
I want to thank you, Brave Souls, for coming out. And as I was coaching my dear friend from Sarah Lawrence, one thing you learn as an artist is the show must go on, and no matter how many people show up. And
We
so
love you all.
And,
We
no,
love you all.
because this is a testimony. You never know. There's
Yeah.
5 people.
There are a lot of other things you could have been doing tonight.
100 people.
Yeah.
The rest of the people have spring fever, and they're going to have that one night of sex that New Yorkers don't have anymore. I guess apparently to was a New Yorker or something.
Yeah.
And Perry, I just want to throw in that. Do you want to just do a little preemptive thing about your work with Stonewall, since they are having their 50th anniversary? Because he was a part of this.
Yeah, I mean, well, we're going to be having the Stonewall 50 celebration, and my brothers and sisters from Gay Liberation Front are going to be doing a number of events involved with this. They'll be happening the week of Gay Pride, and actually we'll be having 2 of them here. One will be on the Thursday of the week of Gay Pride, when there's going to be a meet and greet, so you get to meet a lot of people who were in the original Gay Liberation Front. And the Gay Liberation Front is the organization that basically spawned the modern gay movement, LGBT movement. What we call the gay revolution came from us. And I'm looking forward to it. So it should be very exciting. And this is going to be a marvelous Gay Pride.
Well, blessings. Thank you. So what you have here is you have a couple decades, 70s, and I'm the 80s. And we have some stories. And so why are we here tonight? And I think, in reflection, the gist of what's happening tonight is we're going to talk about storytelling, who we are as queer people and other. It's not necessarily not responsive to hetero-oriented people or binary, whatever, is, a lot of what my thinking, and I'm the author of Tales of a Jaguar Magician, which is here. It's centered around a queer creation myth. Many of us grow up in schools that teach pretty much binary hetero mythology. So anybody who's growing up queer-oriented from birth or discovering later on is immediately feeling flawed. Where do I fit into this? Okay, I'm a god and I can change from male to female, but a lot of that information doesn't really come until college level, when you get Hindu myth or Native American myth, or you get Greek myths. So the genesis for these books, this storytelling, was I was at Gay Pride 100 years ago in San Francisco, and I was looking around, I was like, what is wrong with us? First of all, we're so much fucking fun. We're really colorful. We're hell of creative. And I was like, why are we feared? What's wrong? But I turned it inside and I said, what is not happening within our own queer community that we're not projecting stories out to the larger society in a way that we're being accepted? We're being tolerated, which is one aspect. So my invitation tonight through our conversation is to, if you can walk out of here thinking or feeling or questioning queer youth, queer people, LBGT plus Q, BLT sandwich people,
Okay.
is that we are actually integral to the vitality and health of society, to really change that conversation we're having with ourselves, that we should just have gay marriage and be tolerated and find out. It's no, you need us. There's something very dynamic because queer people have been celebrated for thousands of years, as we know, as we're discovering archaeological sites, anthropological situations, Peruvian erotic, I mean, there's just a number, and I'm not really going to go into that. That's some other discussion. But I wanted to, when I was looking around that day in San Francisco, I was like, well, what is drag? Okay, it's, right now it's less of RuPaul conversation, but it's shape-shifting. And I used to go to these clubs, years ago. Certainly we were talking, or I was discussing the celebrated Tranny Shack in San Francisco, probably 20-some years ago. It's the underworld, it's the cabaret. So you get this shape-shifting, you get this Heyoka trickster sacred clown celebration to the audience, some sort of laughter healing. So when I started looking at this, I said, well, what I began to understand within myself is I said, we have no stories, we have no frame stories, we have no guided mythology. And a mythology is sort of a collection of rites of passage, you might say. Like, how do you grow up, feeling open about your gender assignment? Because I had a friend of mine, here's a question, I'm diverting, this is free association, but I had a friend of mine said, I don't understand this gender fluidity and gender beyond. I said, well, let me just give you my perspective. I said, because you have a penis or a vagina, it doesn't mean you have to act a certain way attached to your genitalia. And then she was like, oh, okay. So if I have a penis, do I have to walk around in a suit and tie in Wall Street? Do I have to play football? Or can I wear my mother's high heels and not try to get gender reassignment, but just say, okay, I have a penis, but I'm not feeling this beat myself up masculinity sort of thing. So in conversation tonight is my beautiful, beautiful brother, ally, Perry. And our attempt tonight is to talk about, storytelling and its various formats, and certainly, how we're going to invite you, all of us, to do better. Certainly, I was talking to one of the people here that things like Grindr and all these things are actually emphasizing ageism, emphasizing stigma, actually emphasizing racism. I mean, they've changed that a little bit, and I met the owner of Grindr. Don't say, I'm Latino oriented, or I'm into black men, or I'm into white men, or I'm into, whatever. It's just open it up. I'm open to whomever passes by. So with that said, Perry, you had your intro. No, this is like, I'm personally walking these books out for the first time. So this is my second event with them. The prior one was the Lambda. But one of the things I want to touch on is, so the way I started to walk this out, okay, is in 2001, after, looking at gay pride and all these different things, I started to question myself and, who was I as a faggot? And who was I as an artist, as a commodity, as an objectified capitalist product? And so I decided to do something in my first installation, which was in the Castro in San Francisco, that was called Homoeroticism and the Sacred. Because I wanted, first of all, to de-objectify art, that it was just this thing to be purchased and owned as an artist, as opposed to something living and animating that you're bringing into your house. And I centered it around, I wanted to better understand myself as a male, and the male ego, was centered around patriarchy. So I did the installation Homoeroticism and the Sacred, and with a performance art piece called The Death of the Male Ego. This was spurred by, how many of you have heard of the book Castell's Encyclopedia of Queer Myth, Symbol and Spirit? Have you had it in here? It's a phenomenal book. Changed my life. It's an encyclopedia, and it basically goes through all these metaphoric, from food to all these religions, different movements, but it's spoken or revealed to its reader as an encyclopedia. So you can look something up, like, for example, lettuce. Lettuce is a homoerotic food. And at my installation, I had, homoerotic foods and different things like that. But it was opening me up to, homoeroticism is everywhere and in everyone. And then we're taught and institutionalized to behave certain patterns and religions and different things. So my beautiful friend here, Perry, and I'm going to turn it over a little bit, we started talking about primitive culture. So let's just touch a little bit on that. But Perry had touched upon Schneebaum.
Well,
Can you take that over a little bit?
yeah.
Okay. Which is another author.
Okay. First, I think it's important for us to get a handle on Willow's books. The books are really fascinating. They're very rich. There's a lot of density of feeling, language, symbolism in the books. I started reading the books, and the books take place in this kind of mythical, wild world, and there's just this incredible array of symbolism and ideas that come through them, and the symbolism and ideas come in through the language of the books, and also, of course, through the visual aspects of the books. And it brought me to this feeling that I've had for a long time, of course, which is that there's something about queer men and women and embracing a more, what you could call more primitive cultures. That is, cultures in which legalized homophobia haven't taken control of the culture yet. And this attraction to wildness and things outside of Western repression, I mean, it goes back hundreds of years, but there's this whole line of what I would call queer heroes who've been involved with this. And one of them was Sir Richard Burton. Sir Richard Burton, he's not the Richard Burton that married Elizabeth Taylor, but he was,
That's what I was wondering.
he was a...
She wouldn't know.
Yeah, exactly. Sir Richard Burton was this guy who was came from an upper middle class English Victorian family, and he went crazy over like primitive people who were not fucked up by Victorianism, and he became the first Westerner to penetrate into Arabia. He would go in Arab drag, and there were places that like no Western had ever gone there. He wrote the first unexpurgated volume of the Arabian Nights. It was like the Arabian Nights with all the cocksucking, and there really is, the Arabian Nights are really amazing stories. I'm crazy about the Arabian Nights. So he wrote the first unexpurgated Arabian Nights. He wrote several other books after that, and his life was so scandalous that after he died, his widow, he was married, had a couple of kids, he had to be, and after he died, his wife burned all of his letters. So this queer lusciousness towards primitivism, I mean, it really goes back. And it brought me to someone else who was in that line, and that was a great friend of mine named Tobias Schneebaum. And Tobias was this sweet little gay guy from Brooklyn who early on in his life, like we're talking about in the 1950s, decided that the only way he could express his queerness was to get away from everything to do with Western life. And he went to live in the Peruvian Amazon with a group of cannibals who engaged in like uninhibited homosexual feelings. And then later on, he went into New Guinea and lived with this group of, this tribe called the Asmat. and he became the world's foremost authority